The late afternoon sun cast long, skeletal shadows across the cluttered expanse of the garage floor, painting the mundane assortment of discarded belongings in hues of amber and deepening ochre. Dust motes, disturbed by my earlier rummaging, danced in the golden shafts of light like tiny, restless spirits. The air hung thick and still, carrying the faint, familiar sense of aged wood, dormant lawn equipment, and a subtle undertone of something indefinably old. The ghosts of projects long finished and forgotten. For months, the promise of a clean garage had lingered on my mental periphery, a vague intention overshadowed by the more immediate demands of life. But today, a Saturday blessedly free of obligations had presented itself, an open window in the relentless schedule, armed with a steaming mug of coffee and the determined energy that often accompanies a rare stretch of unscheduled time. I had finally ventured into the dusty realm of forgotten things. My flannel shirt sleeves were rolled to my elbows, revealing the pale skin beneath, a stark contrast to the deepening tan on my hands. I moved with a deliberate purpose, pulling out forgotten holiday decorations swathed in layers of tissue paper, bags filled with clothes too worn or too out of style to donate, and stacks of plastic storage bins labelled with cryptic, long-forgotten contents. Cobwebs clung to the corners of the ceiling like delicate, macabre lace, and the faint, pervasive whiff of engine oil, a constant companion in this space, mingled with the drier scent of cardboard and disuse. It wasn't an unpleasant smell, not, exactly, more a testament to the garage's dual existence as both storage space and occasional workshop. A place where practicality and neglect coexisted in a dusty truce. Trailing behind me, as he always did, was Toby. My 12-year-old golden retriever, a creature of unwavering loyalty and a perpetually optimistic disposition, padded softly across the concrete floor. His tail, a feathery plume the colour of pale wheat, swished back and forth with the steady rhythm of a metronome, a silent commentary on my activities. He loved being near me, even if his contribution to the task at hand was limited to occasional contented sighs and the comforting weight of his presence nearby. He was a gentle soul, my Toby, a dog who once famously retreated in bewildered alarm from a cricket that had the audacity to look directly at him. Bravery, in its conventional sense, was not his defining characteristic. His strengths lay in his quiet companionship, his intuitive understanding of my moods, and the unwavering warmth of his affection. I had worked my way through a stack of storage bins labelled old school stuff, a nostalgic journey through faded report cards, forgotten yearbooks, and the remnants of childhood hobbies, when my gaze fell upon it. Tucked away in a shadowy corner, behind a leaning tower of old tyres, sat a plain cardboard box. It was unremarkable in its appearance, utterly devoid of any distinguishing features. No labels, no writing, not even the stray mark of a Sharpie pen marred its surface. It was simply there, a rectangular void in the surrounding clutter, coated in a fine layer of dust and slightly misshapen from years of unseen pressure. Curiosity piqued, I nudged the box with the toe of my worn work boot. The corner gave way with a soft, damp crunch, the sound oddly amplified in the stillness of the garage. The cardboard felt surprisingly flimsy, almost waterlogged in that one spot. Definitely garbage, I thought, a silent assessment confirmed by the decaying integrity of its structure. And then, Toby barked. The sound was sharp, sudden, and utterly unexpected. It ripped through the quiet of the garage like a tear in fabric, making me jump. It wasn't his usual happy yip of greeting or the low rumble of playful demand. This was a short, emphatic bark, almost a warning. "Relax, buddy," I said, turning. To him, a hand instinctively reaching out to stroke his soft head. His golden fur felt warm beneath my fingers. Just some trash. But he didn't relax. Instead, he took a step closer to the box, his body low to the ground, a low growl rumbling in his chest. His eyes, usually soft and full of gentle amusement, were fixed on the unassuming cardboard with an intensity I had never witnessed before. It was unnerving, this sudden shift in his demeanour, this unexpected possessiveness towards a piece of discarded refuse. Before I could fully process his strange, Behavior. I reached for the box again, intending to scoop it up and toss it into the recycling bin that stood waiting by the garage door. That's when it happened. Toby lunged. It wasn't a full-fledged attack, not the kind of aggressive display you might expect from a less gentle breed. It was a quick, snapping motion, his teeth closing on my hand with a surprising force. Not a deep bite, more of a sharp nip, a clear and unmistakable message. No. I recoiled, a yelp of surprise and a flicker of pain escaping my lips. I stared at Toby, my mind struggling to reconcile this uncharacteristic aggression with the sweet, docile companion I knew. This was Toby, the dog who was afraid of crickets. What in the world had gotten into him? "Toby!" I exclaimed, my voice a mixture of shock and disbelief. He stood frozen, his gaze still fixed on the box, a low whine now emanating from his throat. The hair along his back was slightly raised, a subtle ridge of tension that spoke volumes. I looked down at my hand. 4 small red marks were already beginning to well up on my skin, a tangible testament to his unexpected outburst. It stung, not just physically, but with a deeper layer of bewilderment. This wasn't normal dog behavior. Not for Toby. I backed away slowly, my eyes never leaving him. He remained tense, a silent guardian standing watch over a dilapidated cardboard box. The scene felt surreal, a bizarre tableau in the otherwise ordinary setting of my cluttered garage. What was so special about that box? It was just a piece of old cardboard, damp and falling apart. There was nothing to indicate it held anything of value, no markings to suggest a treasured past. Yet, here was my gentle dog, my shadow, acting with a fierce protectiveness that was completely foreign to his nature. I decided to retreat, to give us both some space to calm down. Maybe he was just having an off moment, a strange quirk of canine psychology that would pass as quickly as it had appeared. I moved towards the workbench, my gaze still flicking back to Toby and his silent vigil over the box. He watched me, his body still tense, but the aggressive edge seeming to soften slightly as I moved away from his guarded treasure. He let out another soft whine, a sound that now held a note of anxiety, almost pleading. I sat down heavily on the edge of the workbench, the cool metal a stark contrast to the sudden heat of my injured hand. I pressed a clean rag against the small wounds, watching as tiny droplets of blood stained the white fabric. My mind raced, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Could there be something in the box? Something I had missed? I hadn't opened. It hadn't even gotten close enough to see inside. But its dilapidated condition suggested it was empty, or at least held nothing substantial enough to maintain its shape. And even if there was something inside, why would Toby react so violently to my attempt to discard the entire container? He had never been possessive of inanimate objects before. Toys, yes, he had his favourites, well worn and slobber covered. But a plain cardboard box? It made no sense. I thought back to the morning, to the familiar routine of our Saturday mornings. Toby had been his usual cheerful self, greeting me with a wagging tail and a soft nudge of his wet nose against my hand as I poured my coffee. He had followed me into the garage, his tail swishing contentedly as I began my cleaning. He had even settled down in his usual spot near the workbench, occasionally sighing contentedly as he watched my progress. There had been no hint of this strange behavior, no indication of the possessive instinct that had suddenly erupted. The only thing that had changed was the appearance of that unassuming cardboard box. A shiver ran down my spine, despite the warmth of the afternoon sun filtering through the dusty windows. There was something unsettling about this whole situation, something that went beyond a simple canine quirk. It felt significant, though I couldn't articulate why. I stood up slowly, deciding on a new approach. Direct confrontation had clearly failed. Maybe if I ignored the box for a while, Toby would lose interest. Or perhaps, if I approached it with him, showed him I wasn't a threat to whatever he perceived it to be, his anxiety would subside. I took a step towards him, speaking in a soft, reassuring tone. "Okay, buddy, it's all right. I'm not going to touch it right now." He watched me warily, his ears twitching. He remained positioned between me and the box, a silent sentinel guarding his unexpected treasure. I moved towards the stack of old newspapers I had been meaning to take to the curb. I picked up a bundle, the dry rustling of the paper filling the silence. I wanted to appear nonchalant, to convey that my focus had shifted. Toby's gaze flickered towards me, then back to the box. He didn't move from his post. After a few minutes of feigned disinterest, I tried a different tactic. I knelt down a short distance from the box, my gaze fixed on Toby. "What is it, boy?" I asked gently. "What's so important about this old thing?" He whined again, a soft pleading sound that tugged at my heart. He took a tentative step towards the box, then looked back at me, his eyes filled with a strange mixture of anxiety and something else. Something I couldn't quite decipher. It was as if he wanted me to understand, to see what he saw in that plain piece of cardboard, but lacked the means to communicate it. I stayed where I was, my posture relaxed, my voice calm. "Can you show me, Toby?" I asked softly. "Is there something you want me to see?" He took another hesitant step towards the box, then nudged it gently with his nose. He looked back at me again, his tail giving a small, uncertain wag. Hope flickered within me. Maybe he wasn't possessive. Maybe he was trying to tell me something. I stood up slowly and took a step closer. Toby remained by the box, his body still, tense but no longer radiating the same level of aggression. I stopped a few feet away, my eyes scanning the plain cardboard. There was still nothing remarkable about it. It was just a box, dusty and worn. "Okay, buddy," I said softly. "Let's look at it together." I took another step, and this time, Toby didn't growl. He remained still, his gaze fixed on my face, a low whine still rumbling in his chest. Slowly, cautiously, I knelt down beside the box. Toby leaned against my leg, his body trembling slightly. I reached out a hand, my movements deliberate and non-threatening. As my fingers brushed against the rough cardboard, Toby let out a soft sigh, a sound that seemed to carry a strange mixture of relief and apprehension. And then I saw it. Almost hidden beneath a layer of dust, on the underside of the box that had been facing the wall, was a faint inscription. It was written in a faded, almost illegible script, the ink long since bled into the cardboard fibers. I carefully brushed away the dust, my fingers tracing the faint lines. It was a single word, written in what looked like a child's handwriting. Home. The simple word struck me with an unexpected force. It was just a word, yet in that moment, coupled with Toby's bizarre behavior, it felt heavy with unspoken meaning. I looked at Toby, who was now nudging the box gently with his nose again, a soft whimper escaping his throat. His eyes, fixed on the faded inscription, held a look of profound sadness, a depth of emotion that startled me. What did this word mean to him? Why was this particular box so important? I picked up the box, its lightness surprising given the weight of the moment. The cardboard was thin and brittle, and the dampness I had felt earlier was more pronounced on the bottom. Turning it over, I examined the rest of its surface. There were no other markings, no clues to its origin or its significance. It was just a plain beat-up cardboard box with a single faded word written on the bottom. But for Toby, it was clearly something more. I carried the box out of the shadowy corner and into the brighter light of the open garage door. Toby followed closely, his tail now giving a tentative wag. He nudged the box with his nose again as I placed it gently on the workbench. Kneeling down beside him, I ran my hand over his soft fur. "What is it, boy?" I murmured. "Why do you care so much about this box?" He licked my hand, his warm tongue a familiar comfort. He then looked at the box and let out another soft whine, his gaze fixed on the faded word. I sat there for a long moment, just looking at the box and at Toby, trying to understand. The word home echoed in my mind, a simple word with a multitude of possible meanings. Could this box be a relic from Toby's past, from before he came to live with me? He had been a rescue, his early life a mystery. Could this box hold a connection to that unknown time? The thought sent a pang of unexpected emotion through me. I had always known so little about his beginnings, about the experiences that had shaped him before he became my beloved companion. I picked up the box again, turning it over in my hands. The cardboard felt fragile, as if it might crumble at any moment. I decided to open it, to see if there was anything inside that might shed some light on Toby's strange attachment. Carefully, I peeled back the fragile flaps. The inside of the box was empty. Dust motes swirled in the air as I peered inside, but there was nothing else. No objects, no scraps of paper, no lingering scents, just the bare, dusty cardboard. The emptiness was puzzling. If the box itself held no tangible value, then why was Toby so fiercely protective of it? My gaze returned to the faded word on the bottom. Home. Could the box itself be the significant object? A container that once held something precious, something that represented home to Toby in some way. A sudden thought struck me. Could this box have belonged to his previous owners, a memento from a time before he found his way to me? The idea resonated with a strange sense of rightness. It explained his strong emotional reaction, his possessiveness, and the sadness in his eyes when he looked at the word. If this was indeed a link to his past, then my attempt to throw it away must have felt like a profound betrayal to him, a discarding of a precious memory. I knelt down and hugged Toby, burying my face in his soft fur. "Oh, buddy," I murmured. "I'm so sorry. I didn't understand." He leaned into me, his body relaxing slightly. He licked my ear, a gesture of forgiveness and reassurance. I stood up, holding the box carefully in my hands. I knew I couldn't just throw it away now. It was more than just a piece of trash. It was a connection to Toby's past, a tangible link to a part of his life I knew nothing about. I looked around the garage, my gaze settling on a shelf filled with old photographs and keepsakes. I cleared a space and gently placed the cardboard box in the center. "There," I said to Toby. "It's safe. I won't throw it away." He approached the shelf cautiously, sniffing at the box. He then looked up at me, his tail giving a slow, gentle wag. The tension in his body seemed to ease. I spent the rest of the afternoon cleaning the garage, Toby staying close by, occasionally glancing at the box on the shelf. The incident had cast a different light on my companion, revealing a depth of emotion and a connection to his past that I had never suspected as the last rays of sunlight faded and the garage grew dim. I closed the door, leaving Toby and his mysterious box in the quiet stillness. I knew that this was just the beginning of a new understanding, a deeper exploration into the history of the loyal friend who shared my life. The plain cardboard box, with its faded inscription, had become more than just an object. It had become a key unlocking a hidden chapter in Toby's story, and perhaps in my own. The question now was, what other secrets did that simple word, home, hold? And what journey would it take us on to uncover them? Only time would tell. But one thing was certain. That old cardboard box was staying. The following morning dawned with a fragile beauty, the pale light of early spring filtering through the bedroom window, painting soft, ethereal patterns on the worn wooden floor. The air held a crisp coolness, a subtle reminder of the winter that had only recently relinquished its hold. For a long moment, I lay in bed. The lingering warmth of the blankets a comforting cocoon against the chill. My mind, however, was already awake, replaying the strange events of the previous afternoon. Toby's uncharacteristic aggression, the dusty cardboard box, the faded word home. The pieces of the puzzle swirled in my thoughts, refusing to coalesce. into a coherent picture. I glanced towards the foot of the bed, where Toby usually lay curled in a contented ball of golden fur, but this morning, his spot was empty. A faint stirring from downstairs broke the silence. He was awake then. I swung my legs out of bed, the cool air raising goosebumps on my skin. As I pulled on a sweater, my gaze drifted towards the window, overlooking the quiet street. A lone robin hopped across the dewy lawn, its cheerful chirping a stark contrast to the lingering sense of unease I felt. Downstairs, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, a familiar comfort. Toby greeted me at the bottom of the stairs, his tail wagging tentatively, his eyes holding a watchful, almost apologetic quality. He nudged my hand with his wet nose, a silent plea for forgiveness. "Hey, buddy," I murmured, scratching behind his ears. His fur felt soft and warm beneath my touch. "It's okay. I know you didn't mean it." But even as I spoke the words, a small part of me still felt a prickle of unease. Toby had never bitten anyone before, not even in play. His reaction to that box had been primal, driven by an instinct I couldn't comprehend. We settled into our usual morning routine. I poured myself a cup of coffee, and Toby lay down by my feet as I scrolled through the news on my tablet. Mundane normalcy of the morning felt like a fragile shield against the lingering strangeness of the previous day. After breakfast, I found myself drawn back to the garage. The memory of Toby guarding that dusty box was a persistent whisper in the back of my mind. He followed me, his usual cheerful demeanor somewhat subdued, his gaze occasionally flicking towards the shelf where the box now sat. The box looked even more unremarkable in the clear morning light. Just a plain cardboard container, worn and faded. Yet for Toby, it held some profound significance. I stood in front of the shelf, studying the box. The faded word home seemed to shimmer faintly in the light, a silent testament to its importance. I reached out and gently picked it up. It was surprisingly light, the cardboard thin and brittle. Toby whined softly and nudged my hand. His eyes were fixed on the box, filled with a mixture of longing and anxiety. "I'm not going to throw it away, buddy," I reassured him, stroking his head. "I just want to understand." I carried the box over to the workbench, Toby padding silently beside me. I sat down, placing the box carefully in front of me. Toby sat too, his gaze never leaving the cardboard. For a long time we just sat there, the silence of the garage broken only by Toby's occasional soft sighs. The weight of the unknown pressed down on me. What was the story behind this box? What connection did it hold to Toby's past? I decided to try and find out if there were any other markings on the box, anything I might have missed in my initial cursory examination. I turned it over slowly, carefully inspecting every surface. On one of the side panels, almost hidden beneath a layer of grime, I found another faint inscription. It was smaller than the word home, and even more faded. Squinting, I tried to decipher the barely visible letters. It took several minutes of careful scrutiny, tilting the box in the light and gently brushing away the dust before I could finally make out the word. Pilot. The single word hung in the air between us, heavy with unanswered questions. "Pilot," I murmured, looking at Toby. His ears perked up at the sound of the word, and he let out a soft bark, a flicker of something I couldn't quite name in his eyes. Recognition? Memory? "Pilot," I repeated, tracing the faded letters with my finger. What could it mean? Was it a name? A place? A type of object that was once inside the box? The two words, home and pilot, seemed disconnected, yet Toby's strong reaction suggested a significant link between them. I stood up and began to search the garage, my mind racing. Had I ever seen anything else with the word pilot associated with it? Old toys, books, photographs. I rummaged through the bins of old school stuff, the boxes of holiday decorations, the stacks of forgotten tools. Nothing seemed to bear any connection to the word. Frustration began to creep in. These cryptic clues were leading nowhere. I needed more information, something tangible that could shed light on Toby's past. I thought about his adoption. It had been 5 years ago, from a local shelter. I remembered the day I brought him home vividly. He had been timid and underweight, his golden fur matted and dull. The shelter had very little information about his history, only that he'd been found wandering alone on a rural road with no collar or identification. They estimated his age to be around 7 at the time. I had named him Toby, a simple, friendly name that seemed to suit his gentle nature. Over the years, he had blossomed under my care, his fearfulness gradually replaced by a quiet confidence and unwavering affection. But his past remained a mystery, a blank page in the story of his life. Could this box be a relic from that unknown past, a tangible link to the life he had lived before he found his way to me? I decided to call the shelter to see if they had any additional information about Toby, any details they might have forgotten to mention. I found the adoption papers in a file cabinet in my office and dialed the number listed. The phone rang several times before a woman with a cheerful voice answered. "Good morning. Thank you for calling the Sunny Meadows Animal Shelter. This is Sarah speaking. How can I help you?" "Hi, Sarah," I said. "My name is your name. I adopted a golden retriever from your shelter about 5 years ago. His name is Toby." "Toby? Oh yes, I remember Toby. Such a sweet boy. How is he doing?" Sarah's voice was warm and genuine. "He's doing wonderfully," I replied. "He's a very happy and much-loved member of our family. I was calling because I recently found something that I think might be connected to his past, and I was wondering if you had any more information about him, anything at all about where he came from." There was a brief pause on the other end of the line. Let me pull up his file," Sarah said. I could hear the faint click of keys as she typed on her computer. After a moment, she spoke again. "Okay, I have Toby's information here. As we mentioned at the time of adoption, he was found as a stray in the county. No microchip, no collar. The person who found him said he seemed disoriented and scared. We held him for the required period, but no one ever came forward to claim him." My heart sank slightly. I hadn't really expected them to have a detailed history, but a small part of me had hoped for some clue, some piece of information that could help explain the box. "Did the person who found him mention anything else?" I asked. "Anything at all that might be relevant? A location? A landmark? Anything?" Sarah paused again. "Let me see. The report just says, found near County Road 12, approximately 5 miles west of the town of Willow Creek. That's all the specific location information we have." Willow Creek. The name sounded vaguely familiar, but I couldn't place it. "And in terms of his condition," I prompted. "Did they note anything about him having any possessions? Anything with him when he was found?" "No," Sarah replied. "The report says he was alone and had no belongings with him." So, the shelter had no answers. The mystery of the box and its connection to Toby's past remained unsolved. I thanked Sarah for her time and hung up the phone, a sense of disappointment washing over me. I looked at Toby, who was now resting his head on my lap, his eyes soft and trusting. He had no idea I was trying to unravel the secrets of his past. My gaze drifted back to the box on the workbench. Home and pilot, 2 simple words that held so much unknown weight. Pilot. The word conjured images of flight, of journeys, of distant places. Could Toby have belonged to someone who was a pilot? Someone who travelled frequently? And home. What did that word signify for him? A place he had lost? A family he remembered? I picked up the box again, turning it over and over in my hands. The cardboard was flimsy, not sturdy enough to have contained anything heavy or substantial for a long period. It felt more like a temporary container, something used for transport or short-term storage. An idea began to form in my mind. What if the box itself wasn't the important thing? What if it was what the box contained at some point? Something that held a deep emotional significance for Toby. Something that represented home, or was connected to someone he knew as Pilot. But the box was empty. Whatever it had once held was long gone. Unless there was something hidden within the box itself. I examined the cardboard closely, running my fingers along the seams and edges. The construction was simple, the flaps held together with old brittle tape. Carefully, I began to peel away the tape, my movements slow and deliberate, mindful of the fragile cardboard. As the last piece of tape came loose, I unfolded the flaps, revealing the inside of the box more fully. It still looked empty. But then I noticed something. On the inside of one of the flaps, almost completely hidden by a layer of dust and grime, was another faint marking. It was a small, almost circular impression, like a stamp that had faded over time. I held the flap up to the light, squinting. It was difficult to make out any details, but it looked like some kind of logo or emblem. With painstaking care, I used a soft brush to gently remove the layers of dust. Slowly, the faint impression began to reveal itself. It was a stylized wing, curved and elegant, with a small star nestled in the center. Beneath the wing, I could just make out a few faint letters. My heart quickened. A wing. A star. Could this be connected to the word Pilot? I continued to brush away the dust, revealing more of the letters beneath the emblem. There were only a few, and they were faded and incomplete, but I could make out the distinct shape of a V and an I. V. I. Pilot. Wing. Star. The pieces were beginning to stir, hinting at a larger picture that was still just out of reach. I looked at Toby, who was watching me intently, his tail giving a hopeful wag. He seemed to sense that I had found something, that I was closer to understanding the mystery of his box. "What do you think, buddy?" I murmured, holding up the flap with the faded emblem. "Does this mean anything to you?" He whined softly and reached out to sniff the cardboard, his nose twitching. He then looked back at me, his eyes filled with a question. I knew I had to find out what this emblem meant. It felt like the key to unlocking Toby's past, the first real clue in the mystery of the box. But where to begin? A wing and a star. It could be anything. A military insignia? An airline logo? A company emblem? I decided to take a photograph of the faded emblem, hoping that a clearer image might help in my search. I carefully positioned my phone and snapped a few close-up shots, trying to capture as much detail as possible. Back inside the house, I uploaded the photos to my computer and began to enhance them, adjusting the contrast and brightness, trying to bring the faint emblem into sharper focus. After several minutes of painstaking editing, the image on the screen was slightly clearer. The wing was more defined, its feathers delicately curved. The star in the center had 5 points, and the letters V and I beneath it were more distinct. Wing, star, V, I. I opened a new browser window and began to search. Wing and star logo, aviation star and wing emblem, military wing and star insignia. I scrolled through dozens of images, but none matched the faded emblem on the cardboard. I tried adding the letters V and I to my search terms. Wingstar 6 logo, aviation Wingstar 6 emblem. Still nothing. Frustration mounted. The clue was right there, on the box, yet it remained stubbornly elusive. I leaned back in my chair, sighing. Toby, sensing my frustration, nudged my hand with his head. I scratched behind his ears, finding comfort in his familiar presence. "We'll figure it out, buddy," I said softly. "We just need to keep looking." My gaze drifted back to the enhanced image of the emblem on the screen. There was something about the style of the wing, the placement of the star. It felt familiar, though I couldn't place why. I decided to try a different approach. Instead of searching for logos, I would search for historical aviation insignia. Perhaps the emblem was old, no longer in use. I typed vintage aviation wing star insignia into the search bar. As the results loaded, my eyes scanned the images, and then I saw it. A faded black and white photograph of a pilot's uniform. On the breast pocket was a small, circular emblem. I clicked on the image, my heart pounding. The emblem was strikingly similar to the one on the cardboard box. A stylized wing, a 5-pointed star in the center, and beneath it, the faint suggestion of letters. The caption beneath the photograph read, World War II, Army Air Corps pilot, World War II, Army Air Corps. Could Toby's past be connected to a World War II pilot? It seemed impossible. Toby was only around 12 years old now, which would have made him a puppy, at most, during the war. But the emblem, the resemblance was undeniable. I clicked on other images related to the World War II Army Air Corps. Many of them featured the same wing and star emblem, often accompanied by different letters or symbols. I searched for variations of the emblem, with the letters V and I. After a few more searches, I finally found a match. An emblem featuring a curved wing, a central star, and the letters USAAF beneath it. The V and I on Toby's box were faded and incomplete, but they could very well be part of the USAAF inscription. USAF, United States Army Air Forces. The pieces were beginning to fall into place, forming a picture that was both intriguing and deeply poignant. Could Toby have belonged to a veteran of World War II, a pilot in the Army Air Forces? It still seemed unlikely, given Toby's age, but the connection to the emblem was too strong to ignore. Perhaps the box didn't belong to Toby directly, but to someone he had been close to in his early life, someone who had served in the USAAF. The word home took on a new layer of meaning. Could it have been the home of this pilot? A place where Toby had once lived, and pilot. Was it a term of endearment? A way Toby remembered this person? The mystery was deepening, leading me down a path I never could have imagined. A dusty cardboard box found in my garage had somehow opened a window into a distant past. A past connected to a global conflict and a loyal dog whose early life remained, shrouded in mystery. I looked at Toby, who was now dozing peacefully at my feet, oblivious to the historical threads I was beginning to unravel. His gentle presence was a stark contrast to the images of wartime pilots and military insignia on my screen, but the connection was there, undeniable. The box, the emblem, the words, they were all pieces of a puzzle I was now determined to solve. The next step was clear. I needed to learn more about the USAAF wing and star emblem and its significance to the pilots who wore it. Perhaps that would lead me closer to understanding Toby's past and the meaning of that simple yet powerful word, home. The note was short, barely a few lines, but the words carried a weight that made my heart ache and swell at the same time. If you found this, it means you kept following the trail. It means you still believe in chasing memories. There's one last place I want you to go. Back to where it all began. I reread it twice, my fingers tracing the familiar loops of Dad's handwriting. A wave of emotion washed over me. Gratitude, longing, and a strange sense of homecoming. Toby whined softly and nudged my hand, his warm fur a comforting presence against the cool breeze coming off the lake. He seemed to sense the significance of the moment, the culmination of our journey. Where it all began, I murmured, looking out at the shimmering expanse of still water. The lake stretched out before us, reflecting the clear blue sky like a giant mirror. The air was filled with the gentle lapping of waves against the shore and the distant cry of gulls. But what did Dad mean by where it all began? What was the starting point of this intricate scavenger hunt he had left for me and Toby? My gaze drifted back to the photo album in my lap. I flipped through the pages, searching for a clue, a visual reminder of a place that held special significance, and then I saw it. A faded photograph tucked between two plastic sleeves. It was a picture of a small, unassuming house with a wide front porch and a swing hanging from the rafters. The paint was peeling in places, and the yard was overgrown with wildflowers, but there was a warmth and charm about it that resonated deep within me. In the foreground of the photo, Dad stood with his arm around a younger version of myself. I was holding a tiny puppy with golden fur, Toby. A jolt of recognition shot through me. This was it. This was where we got Toby. I remembered the day, vividly, the excitement and anticipation bubbling inside me as we drove down a long, winding road, the car filled with the scent of pine and wildflowers. I had been begging Dad for a dog for months, and he had finally relented, promising me a surprise. The house had appeared like a mirage at the end of the road, a beacon of hope and happiness. And there, on the porch, was a basket filled with puppies tumbling over each other in a furry mass of energy. I had instantly fallen in love with the smallest one, a golden ball of fluff with big, soulful eyes. I named him Toby, after my favourite character in a book, and he had been my constant companion ever since. The memory of that day, the sheer joy and innocence of it, brought tears to my eyes. This house, this place was indeed where it all began, the starting point of a lifelong bond between me and my beloved dog. I looked at Toby, who was now gazing intently at the photograph in my hands. His tail gave a tentative wag, as if he too recognized the significance of the image. "Do you remember, boy?" I whispered, stroking his soft fur. "Do you remember coming home with us from this place?" He whined softly and licked my hand. His eyes filled with a mixture of nostalgia and affection. It was as if the photograph had unlocked a flood of memories within him, transporting him back to that day of new beginnings. I stood up, my heart pounding with anticipation. "Come on, Toby," I said, my voice filled with excitement. "Let's go find this house." I unfolded the paper map from the wooden box, my fingers tracing the faded lines and markings. It was a hand-drawn map, clearly created by Dad, with landmarks and directions scribbled in his familiar script. The map led us away from the lake, down a narrow dirt road that wound its way through the dense forest. Toby trotted ahead, his nose to the ground, seemingly following an invisible trail. The air grew cooler as we ventured deeper into the woods, the sunlight filtering through the trees in dappled patterns. The silence was broken only by the crunching of gravel beneath the truck tires and the occasional rustle of leaves. As we drove, I couldn't help but feel a sense of awe and wonder. Dad had planned this entire journey, this intricate treasure hunt, with such care and precision. He had left behind a trail of breadcrumbs, guiding me and Toby back to the most precious memories of our lives. It was as if he was still here with us, his presence woven into the very fabric of the landscape. After what seemed like an eternity, the dirt road opened into a small clearing, and there, at the far end of the clearing, was the house from the photograph. It looked exactly as I remembered it, or rather, exactly as the photograph depicted it. The wide front porch, the peeling paint, the overgrown yard. It was all there, frozen in time. A lump formed in my throat as I parked the truck and stepped out. Toby bounded out after me, his tail wagging furiously as he ran towards the house. I followed him slowly, my heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and trepidation. What would we find here? What secrets did this old house hold? As I approached the porch, I noticed something that hadn't been visible from a distance. Carved into one of the wooden posts was a small inscription. I stepped closer and brushed away the dust, revealing the faded letters. The beginning. Tears streamed down my face as I read the simple words. This was it, the final piece of the puzzle, the culmination of Dad's grand plan. He had led us back to the very place where our journey with Toby had begun, the place where our family had been made whole. Toby nudged my hand, his soft eyes filled with concern. I knelt down and hugged him tightly, burying my face in his golden fur. "Thank you, boy," I whispered. "Thank you for bringing me home." We spent the rest of the day exploring the house and the surrounding grounds. The inside of the house was dusty and filled with cobwebs, but it was also filled with echoes of the past. I found old toys and books remnants of a life lived long ago. I imagined myself as a young child, running through these rooms, filled with wonder and excitement. Toby seemed to sense the magic of the place, sniffing at every corner, his tail wagging with a quiet contentment. He even found his way to the very spot on the porch where the basket of puppies had been, curling up in a patch of sunlight as if he were reliving that first day. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the clearing, I gathered Toby and the various treasures we had found. It was time to leave, but I knew I would carry the memories of this place with me forever. The drive back to the cabin was filled with a comfortable silence. Toby rested his head on my lap, his breathing slow and steady. I felt a sense of peace and completeness, as if a missing piece of my heart had finally been found. That night, I built a fire in the hearth and spread out all the mementos we had collected on our journey. The photo album, Dad's letters, the tin box from the fireplace, the lunchbox from the woods, the VHS tape, and now, the small trinkets from the house where we got Toby. It was a tangible representation of our shared history, a testament to the enduring power of love and memory. As I gazed at the collection, a new idea began to form in my mind. Susan had suggested that I turn our adventure into a book or a video. At the time, it had seemed like a distant possibility, a fleeting thought. But now, surrounded by these tangible reminders of the past, the idea took on a new urgency. I realized that this story wasn't just about me and Toby. It was a universal tale of love, loss, and the enduring power of memory. It was a story that needed to be told. I looked at Toby, who was curled up at my feet, his eyes watching me with unwavering devotion. He had been my guide, my companion, my anchor throughout this entire journey, and now I knew he would be my inspiration. I spent the next few days at the cabin, immersed in the task of documenting our adventure. I wrote down every detail, every emotion, every memory that had been unearthed along the way. I scanned the photographs, transcribed Dad's letters, and even included excerpts from the VHS tape. I wanted to create something that would capture the essence of our journey, the magic of the memories we had rediscovered. Toby stayed by my side throughout the entire process, his presence a constant source of comfort and encouragement. He seemed to understand the importance of what I was doing, the need to preserve our story for future generations. When the time came to leave the cabin, I felt a pang of sadness. This place had become a sanctuary, a refuge from the noise and chaos of the outside world, but I also felt a sense of excitement and purpose. I was eager to share our story with the world, to let others know about the power of love. The faded emblem on the cardboard box, the stylized wing with the central star and the barely discernible V and I consumed my thoughts. The connection to the World War II Army Air Forces felt significant, yet the timeline didn't align with Toby's age. He simply couldn't have belonged to a pilot from that era, unless the box held something that belonged to that pilot. Something Toby had somehow come to possess later in his life. A memento, perhaps. A cherished object that carried the scent and memory of someone he had loved. My research into the USAAF insignia led me down fascinating historical rabbit holes. I learned about the different variations of the wing and star, emblem, the units they represented, and the brave young men who had worn them, the sacrifices they made, the stories of courage and camaraderie. It was a poignant reminder of a time of global conflict and the human spirit's resilience. But none of this directly explained Toby's connection to the emblem or the box. I decided to focus on the V and I. Could they represent initials, a unit designation, a specific type of aircraft? I spent hours searching online databases of WO2 pilots, cross-referencing names with the possible initials. I explored lists of Air Force squadrons and the markings on their planes. Each search yielded countless possibilities, but none seemed to fit the faint inscription on the box. Frustration began to gnaw at me. It felt like I was chasing shadows, grasping at fragments of the past without any real way to connect them. Toby, sensing my preoccupation, would often rest his head on my lap as I worked, his warm presence a silent reassurance. Sometimes he would nudge the box with his nose, his eyes filled with a patient curiosity. It was as if he understood I was trying to unravel a mystery that was deeply personal to him. One evening, while I was sifting through more online archives, I stumbled upon a forum dedicated to World War II aviation history. Enthusiasts and descendants of pilots shared stories, photographs, and memorabilia. It was a long shot, but I decided to post a message describing the faded emblem and the letters V and I, and asking if anyone recognized it. I included the detail about Toby's unusual reaction to the box, hoping it might add a unique element that could jog someone's memory. Days turned into nights, and I checked the forum obsessively, but there were no replies. Doubt began to creep in. Perhaps the emblem wasn't related to the USAAF after all. Maybe my initial assumption had been wrong. Just as I was about to give up on the forum, a notification popped up in my inbox. Someone had replied to my post. The message was short and to the point. The wing and star with VI beneath it was a variation used by some transport squadrons in the latter part of the war, particularly those operating in the China-Burma-India CBI theatre. I've seen it associated with the 6th Troop Carrier Squadron, although there might have been others. The VI could possibly refer to the Roman numeral 6. My heart skipped a beat. The CBI theatre. It was a lesser-known part of the war, often overshadowed by the European and Pacific fronts. But the mention of transport squadrons and the possibility of the VI representing a numeral felt significant. I immediately began researching the 6th Troop Carrier Squadron in the CBI. I found articles, historical records, and personal accounts from veterans who had served in that theatre. The images of the aircraft they flew, the treacherous terrain they navigated, and the vital supplies they airlifted painted a vivid picture of a challenging and often overlooked chapter of the war. As I delved deeper, I came across a few photographs of the squadron's aircraft, and there, on the side of one of the C-47 Skytrains, was a faded version of the wing and star emblem with what looked like a 6 beneath it. The style of the wing and star matched the impression on Toby's box. Could the VI have been a slightly stylized or faded representation of the number 6? It seemed plausible. The connection was growing stronger. Now, the question was, how did Toby, a dog who was found as a stray decades after the war, come to possess a box that likely belonged to someone in the 6th Troop Carrier Squadron? I continued my research, focusing on the personnel of the 6th Troop Carrier Squadron. I looked for names, photographs, and any personal stories that might shed light on a connection to a dog. It was a painstaking process, sifting through old rosters and fragmented records. Many of the veterans had passed away, and information was scarce. Then I found a name, Captain James Jimmy Riley. He was listed as a pilot in the 6th Troop Carrier Squadron, serving in the CBI from 1943 until the end of the war. There was a brief mention in one account that Riley had a fondness for animals, and that he had unofficially adopted a stray dog that often hung around the airbase. My pulse quickened. Could this be the connection? I searched for photographs of Captain Riley. Several images appeared, showing a young, smiling pilot in his uniform, the wing and star emblem proudly displayed on his chest. In one grainy photograph taken near a C-47, a dog could be seen sitting at his feet. The dog was small and dark-coloured, not a golden retriever, but it was a dog, and the timeline fit. Could Toby be a descendant of that wartime companion? Had the box somehow been passed down through generations, carrying with it the scent and memory of Captain Riley? It seemed like a long shot, but it was the most promising lead I had found so far. I tried to find more information about Captain Riley after the war. The records indicated that he had returned to the United States and had lived a quiet life, passing away several years ago. There was no mention of him having any family. The trail seemed to have gone cold. Disheartened, I leaned back in my chair, Toby sighing softly at my feet. I looked at the box on the workbench, the faded emblem a silent testament to a past I could only glimpse. "We're close, buddy," I murmured. "I can feel it." Just then, my phone rang. It was Susan. "Hey, how's the research going?" she asked, her voice bright and cheerful. "It's complicated," I replied, and proceeded to tell her about the emblem, the connection to the 6th Troop Carrier Squadron, and Captain Riley. Susan listened intently, her enthusiasm undimmed by the complexities of the story. "This is incredible," she exclaimed when I finished. "A World War II pilot. And Toby might be connected to his dog? This is way more interesting than just a dusty old box." "But I've hit a dead end with Captain Riley," I said, my voice tinged with disappointment. "There's no mention of any family who might have inherited the box." Let me think," Susan said. "Did Captain Riley have any close friends in the squadron? Maybe someone he kept in touch with after the war?" It was a logical suggestion, one I hadn't considered. I had been so focused on finding a direct familial link. I went back to my research on the 6th Troop Carrier Squadron, specifically looking for mentions of Captain Riley's close comrades. Several names popped up repeatedly in personal accounts and squadron histories. One name, in particular, stood out: Sergeant Frank Miller, a flight engineer who had served alongside Riley throughout the war. I searched for information about Frank Miller. I found an obituary from a few years ago, mentioning that he had lived in a small town not too far from where I lived. It also mentioned that he had been a lifelong member of the local Veterans Association. Hope surged through me. Could Sergeant Miller have known about the box? Could he have held onto it after Captain Riley passed away? I found the contact information for the Veterans Association and decided to reach out. The next morning, I made the call. I spoke to a friendly gentleman named Walter, who had known Frank Miller well. I explained my research and my connection to Toby, and asked if Walter knew anything about a box with a USAF emblem. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Then Walter's voice, usually jovial, became soft with emotion. "You know," he said slowly, "Frank did have an old box. He kept it on a shelf in his living room. He never talked much about what was inside, but I remember seeing that wing and star on it. He said it belonged to his old pilot, Jimmy Riley. They were like brothers during the war." My heart pounded in my chest. This was it. "Do you know what happened to the box after Frank passed away?" I asked, my voice trembling slightly. "His daughter Carol handled his affairs," Walter replied. "She lives just outside of town. Let me see if I can find her number for you." A few minutes later, Walter gave me Carol's contact information. I thanked him profusely and hung up the phone, my mind racing. I called Carol immediately. She was surprised to hear from me, but she listened patiently as I explained my connection to Toby and my search for the box. When I described the USAAF emblem, there was a gasp on the other end of the line. "Yes," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "My dad had that box. It belonged to Jimmy. He kept it all those years." I asked her if she still had the box. "I do," she replied. "It's been in the attic. After Dad passed, I didn't really know what to do with it. It was important to him, but he never told me why." I explained Toby's unusual reaction to a similar box, his protective behavior, and the faded word, home. There was a long silence. Then Carol said, Maybe Toby knew Jimmy." The thought sent a shiver down my spine. Could Toby, in some way, remember Captain Riley? Could his strong reaction to the box be a deeply buried memory? Resurfacing after all these years, I asked Carol if I could see the box. "Of course," she said warmly. "Come over whenever you're free. I'd be happy for it to go to someone who understands its significance." A wave of relief and anticipation washed over me. The mystery of the box was finally about to be solved. Toby and I were one step closer to understanding his past, to uncovering the story behind that faded emblem, and the powerful emotions it evoked in my loyal companion. The journey had been long and winding, but it felt like we were finally on the verge of finding our way home. The drive to Carol Miller's house was filled with a nervous anticipation. Toby sat beside me, his head resting on my lap, his eyes calm and trusting. I wondered if he sensed the significance of our destination, if he had any memory of the person who once owned the box we were about to see. Carol's house was a modest ranch-style home on a quiet, tree-lined street. The yard was well tended, with colourful flowers blooming in neat rows. As I parked the truck, Carol came out to greet us, her face warm and welcoming. She was a kind-looking woman with gentle eyes and a soft smile. She reminded me a little of my grandmother. She knelt down to pet Toby, who greeted her with a friendly wag of his tail. "You must be your name," she said, her voice gentle. "And this is Toby. He's beautiful." "Thank you," I replied, shaking her hand. "It's so kind of you to let us come. Please, come in," she said, ushering us into the house. The interior was cozy and filled with family photos and mementos. It felt like a home where love and memories had been cherished. Carol led us into the living room, where a small, dusty, cardboard box sat on a coffee table. It looked remarkably similar to the one I had found in my garage, plain, worn, and unassuming. My heart pounded as I approached it. This was it, the box that had belonged to Captain Jimmy Riley, the box that held the key to Toby's past. Toby followed me closely, his gaze fixed on the cardboard. He let out a soft whine, his body trembling slightly. I reached out and gently picked up the box. It felt light and fragile in my hands. The cardboard was thin and brittle, and the tape holding the flaps together was yellowed and cracked. I turned it over slowly, my eyes scanning the surface, and there, on the bottom, was the same faded word I had seen on my own box: home. A wave of emotion washed over me. The connection was undeniable. This was the box that had triggered Toby's strong reaction, the box that held a link to his history. Looked at Carol. "May I open it?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Of course," she replied, her eyes filled with understanding. "It's yours to explore now." With trembling hands, I carefully peeled back the fragile tape and unfolded the flaps. The inside of the box was empty, just like the one in my garage. But on the inside of one of the flaps, I saw it, the emblem, the stylized wing with the central star, and beneath it, the faded letters USAF. It was the same emblem I had seen on my box, the emblem that connected it to the 6th Troop Carrier Squadron. Toby whined softly and nudged the box with his nose, his tail giving a tentative wag. He seemed to recognize it, to sense its significance. I looked at Carol, my mind racing. "Do you know what my dad kept in this box?" I asked. Carol shook her head. "No," she said. "He never told me. He just kept it on a shelf, and he'd sometimes look at it with a sad smile. It was important to him, but he never said why." I told Carol about my research, about Captain Riley and the 6th Troop Carrier Squadron, and about my theory that Toby might have been connected to Riley's dog during the war. Carol listened intently, her eyes widening with surprise and interest. "That's incredible," she said when I finished. "I never knew any of that. My dad didn't talk much about the war. It was a painful time for him, I think." We spent the next hour talking about Frank Miller, about his life after the war, and about his friendship with Jimmy Riley. Carol shared a few stories about her father, painting a picture of a kind and gentle man who carried the weight of his wartime experiences with him. As we talked, Toby stayed close to the box, occasionally sniffing it and letting out soft whimpers. It was as if he was trying to piece together his own memories, to reconnect with a past that was both distant and deeply personal. Before I left, Carol gave me the box, insisting that it belonged with me and Toby. "It's part of your story now," she said. "It's meant to be with you." I thanked her profusely, my heart filled with gratitude. I knew I had to find out more about Captain Jimmy Riley, to uncover the connection between him, Frank Miller, and Toby. Back at home, I carefully placed Carol's box beside the one from my garage. The two boxes, so similar yet separated by decades, now stood side by side, united by a shared history and a loyal dog. I spent the next few days immersed in research, delving deeper into the history of the 6th Troop Carrier Squadron and the life of Captain Jimmy Riley. I found more photographs, more personal accounts, and more details about the squadron's operations in the CBI. The more I learned, the more I was drawn into the story of these brave young men and the sacrifices they made. They flew dangerous missions over treacherous terrain, delivering vital supplies to Allied forces in the face of enemy fire. They were unsung heroes, their contributions often overlooked in the grand narrative of the war, and at the heart of their story, it seemed, was a bond between a pilot and a dog. I found a few more mentions of Captain Riley's canine companion, a small, dark-coloured dog named Lucky. The accounts described Lucky as Riley's constant shadow, accompanying him on the airbase, waiting patiently for his return from missions, and offering unwavering comfort and companionship. One account, written by a fellow pilot, recounted a particularly harrowing mission in which Riley's plane was hit by enemy fire. He managed to crash land in a remote jungle clearing, and for days his fate was unknown. When a search party finally found him, they discovered Lucky by his side, fiercely guarding him until help arrived. The story was both heartbreaking and inspiring. It spoke to the deep bond between humans and dogs, the unwavering loyalty and unconditional love that transcends time and circumstance. As I read these accounts, I looked at Toby, who was curled up at my feet, his eyes watching me with a quiet intensity. I wondered if he knew, if he somehow remembered Lucky, if he carried within him the echoes of that wartime companionship. The connection between Toby and Captain Riley was becoming clearer, but there were still gaps in the story. How did Toby, a golden retriever found wandering alone decades later, come to possess a box that had once belonged to Riley? I decided to try and trace Toby's lineage, to see if I could find any records of his ancestors. It was a long shot, but it was the only lead I had left. I contacted several golden retriever breeders in the area, explaining my situation and asking if they had any records of dogs with similar markings or characteristics to Toby. Most of them were unable to help, their records going back only a few generations. Just as I was about to give up, I received an email from a breeder who lived in a neighbouring county. She had a record of a golden retriever with a similar coat and markings to Toby, born several years ago. The dog's name was Lucky, and he was the descendant of a long line of golden retrievers known for their intelligence and loyalty. My heart skipped a beat. Lucky? Could it be a coincidence? Or was this the missing link, the connection that tied Toby to Captain Riley's wartime companion? I contacted the breeder and asked if she had any information about Lucky's owners. She said that he had been sold to a family who lived in a small town near where Toby was found as a stray. The pieces were falling into place, forming a picture that was both astonishing and deeply moving. Toby was likely a descendant of Lucky, the dog who had been Captain Riley's loyal companion during the war. The box, a cherished memento of Riley's time in the 6th Troop Carrier Squadron, had been passed down through generations, eventually finding its way to Toby. The word home, written on the bottom of the box, took on a new layer of meaning. It was a reminder of the home that Riley had left behind to serve his country, the home that Lucky had provided him in the midst of war, and the home that Toby had finally found with me. The mystery of the box was solved. It was a tangible link to Toby's past, a testament to the enduring power of love and loyalty that transcends time and circumstance. As I looked at Toby, curled up at my feet, his eyes filled with a quiet contentment, I knew that our journey had come full circle. We had uncovered a hidden chapter in his history, a story that connected him to a brave young pilot and a loyal wartime companion. And in doing so, we had discovered something even more profound, the unbreakable bond between humans and dogs, a bond that spans generations and reminds us of the true meaning of home. With the mystery of the box finally solved, a sense of peace settled over me. The weight of the unknown had lifted, replaced by a profound understanding of Toby's past and the enduring power of love and loyalty. I spent the next few weeks documenting our journey, meticulously piecing together the fragments of the story. I wrote about Toby's uncharacteristic behavior, the faded emblem, the connection to Captain Jimmy Riley and Lucky, and the poignant discovery of Toby's lineage. I included photographs of the box, of Toby, and of the historical images I had found during my research. I wanted to create a narrative that would capture the essence of our adventure, the emotional depth of our discoveries, and the profound connection between humans and their canine companions. As I wrote, Toby stayed by my side, his presence a constant source of comfort and inspiration. He seemed to sense the importance of what I was doing, the need to preserve our story for future generations. One evening, as I was working on the final chapter, I received a call from Susan. "Hey, how's the writing going?" she asked, her voice filled with enthusiasm. "It's going well," I replied. "I'm almost finished. I think I have a really powerful story to tell." "That's great," Susan exclaimed. "I'm so excited to see it. Have you thought about what you want to do with it? Are you still considering a book or a video?" I paused for a moment, considering her question. I had been so focused on the writing process that I hadn't given much thought to what would come next. "I'm not sure yet," I said. "I think it could work well as either. A book would allow for more detail and depth, but a video could capture the emotional impact of the story in a different way." "Why not both?" Susan suggested. "You could write a book and then create a short video to promote it. That way, you could reach a wider audience." It was an intriguing idea. A book would provide a comprehensive account of our journey, while a video could serve as a visual and emotional teaser, drawing people in and encouraging them to learn more. "That's actually a great idea," I said. "I hadn't thought of doing both. I'll definitely consider that." We talked for a while longer, discussing the possibilities for the project. Susan offered her support and encouragement, her enthusiasm fueling my own. After I hung up the phone, I looked at Toby, who was curled up at my feet, his eyes watching me with a quiet intensity. "What do you think, buddy?" I murmured, stroking his soft fur. "Should we tell our story to the world?" He whined softly and licked my hand, his tail giving a gentle wag. I took that as a resounding yes. I spent the next few days finalizing a manuscript, polishing the prose, and ensuring that every detail was accurate and compelling. I wanted to create a book that would not only tell our story, but also honor the memory of Captain Jimmy Riley and Lucky and the countless other brave men and dogs who had served during the war. When I was finally satisfied with the manuscript, I sent it to a few publishers, hoping to find one that would be as passionate about the story as I was. In the meantime, I began working on the video. I gathered the photographs, the video clips I had taken during our journey, and the historical images I had found during my research. I wanted to create a short film that would capture the emotional essence of our adventure, the bond between me and Toby, and the powerful connection to the past. It was a challenging but rewarding process. I learned how to edit video, how to choose music that would evoke the right emotions, and how to craft a narrative that would be both engaging and informative. Toby was my constant companion throughout the process, his presence a source of inspiration and comfort. He seemed to understand that this project was more than just a story. It was a tribute to his heritage, a celebration of the enduring power of love and loyalty. After several weeks of hard work, both the book and the video were finally complete. The book, titled Home: The Story of a Dog, a Box, and a Journey Through Time, was a detailed account of our adventure, filled with photographs, historical information, and personal reflections. The video, titled Toby's Legacy, was a short film that captured the emotional highlights of our journey, focusing on the connection between Toby and Captain Riley and the discovery of his lineage. I sent the book manuscript to a few more publishers and shared the video with Susan and a few other close friends. The response was overwhelmingly positive. Everyone who experienced our story was moved by its emotional depth and its powerful message of hope and connection. A few weeks later, I received some exciting news. One of the publishers had offered to publish Home. They were enthusiastic about the story and believed that it had the potential to resonate with a wide audience. I was overjoyed. It felt like a dream come true, a validation of all the hard work and emotion that had gone into the project. The book was released a few months later, and it quickly became a bestseller. Readers from all over the world were touched by Toby's story, by the mystery of the box, and by the powerful connection between humans and their canine companions. Toby's legacy also garnered widespread attention. It was shared on social media, featured on news websites, and even screened at a few film festivals. It touched the hearts of millions, reminding them of the enduring power of love and loyalty. The success of the book and the video allowed me to share our story with an even wider audience. I was invited to speak at book clubs, schools, and animal shelters. I shared Toby's story with anyone who would listen, hoping to inspire them with the message of hope, connection, and the importance of remembering our past. Toby became a celebrity in his own right. He accompanied me to many of my speaking engagements, charming audiences with his gentle demeanor and his soulful eyes. He was a living embodiment of the story, a testament to the enduring power of love and loyalty. Our journey had come full circle. What had started as a simple attempt to clean out the garage had transformed into a profound exploration of the past, a celebration of the present, and a message of hope for the future. And at the heart of it all was Toby, my loyal companion, my furry muse, the dog who had taught me the true meaning of home. Years passed, filled with book signings, speaking engagements, and the constant companionship of my beloved Toby. Our story continued to resonate with people around the world, reminding them of the enduring power of love, loyalty, and the importance of remembering our past. Toby, now an old gentleman with a snowy muzzle and a slower gait, remained my steadfast companion. He accompanied me on many of my travels, charming audiences with his gentle demeanor and his soulful eyes. He was a living testament to the story we shared, a tangible reminder of the unbreakable bond between humans and dogs. One sunny afternoon, as I was working on a new book project, I received an unexpected phone call. It was from a woman named Emily, who identified herself as a volunteer at a local historical society. "Hello, your name," she said, her voice warm and enthusiastic. "I'm calling because I recently read your book, Home, and I was deeply moved by the story of Toby and Captain Jimmy Riley." "Thank you," I replied, feeling a familiar surge of emotion. "It means a lot to me that our story touched you." "It's more than that," Emily said. "It turns out that Captain Riley was from our town. We have a small exhibit dedicated to local veterans, and we were wondering if you would be willing to donate any memorabilia related to his service, perhaps the box or any photographs." My heart skipped a beat. The idea of donating something to honor Captain Riley's memory was incredibly appealing. It felt like a way to give back to the community and ensure that his story and Toby's legacy would continue to be remembered. "That's a wonderful idea," I said. "I would be honored to donate something. Let me think about what would be most appropriate." I discussed the idea with Toby, stroking his soft white fur as I explained the opportunity to honor Captain Riley. He seemed to understand, his tail giving a gentle thump on the floor. After careful consideration, I decided to donate the cardboard box that had belonged to Captain Riley. It was the most tangible link to his past, the object that had sparked our entire journey of discovery. I also included a framed photograph of Captain Riley in his uniform, the wing and star emblem proudly displayed on his chest. The Historical Society was overjoyed to receive the donation. They created a special display featuring the box and the photograph, along with a brief description of Toby's story and its connection to Captain Riley. The exhibit became a popular attraction, drawing visitors from all over the region. People were moved by the poignant tale of love, loyalty, and remembrance. It was a fitting tribute to a brave young pilot and his devoted canine companion. One day, as I was visiting the exhibit with Toby, I met an elderly gentleman named Mr. Evans. He was a veteran himself, having served in the Korean War. He approached me with tears in his eyes, his hand resting gently on Toby's head. "Your story touched me deeply," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "It reminded me of my own dog, a German shepherd named Ace. He was my buddy during the war, my source of comfort in the midst of chaos." He shared stories of Ace's loyalty and bravery, recounting how the dog had saved his life on more than one occasion. It was a powerful reminder that the bond between humans and dogs transcends time and circumstance, connecting us through shared experiences of love, loss, and resilience. As I listened to Mr. Evans's story, I realized that our journey had touched something profound in others. It had opened a space for them to share their own stories, to connect with their own memories, and to celebrate the enduring power of the human-animal bond. Toby, sensing Mr. Evans's emotion, leaned against his leg, offering silent comfort. It was as if he understood the shared language of love and loyalty that connected them. In the years that followed, Toby's health began to decline. His once vibrant energy faded, his steps became slower and more deliberate, and his eyes, though still filled with love, held a hint of weariness. I cherished every moment with him, knowing that our time together was drawing to a close. I took him on gentle walks in the park, read to him from his favorite books, and simply sat with him, stroking his soft fur and whispering words of love and gratitude. One evening, as the sun was setting, casting long shadows across the living room, Toby lay his head on my lap, his breathing slow and shallow. I knew that the time had come to say goodbye. I held him close, tears streaming down my face as I whispered words of love and gratitude into his ear. I thanked him for his unwavering loyalty, for his boundless love, and for the incredible journey we had shared. He licked my hand one last time, his eyes filled with a deep peace. And then, with a soft sigh, he slipped away. The silence that followed was deafening. The house felt empty, devoid of the warmth and joy that Toby had brought into my life for so many years. I grieved deeply for my beloved companion, the dog who had been my shadow, my confidant, and my furry muse. But amidst the sadness, there was also a profound sense of gratitude. I was grateful for the years we had shared, for the memories we had created, and for the incredible journey that had transformed my life. I was grateful for the opportunity to have known such a loyal and loving soul, and I knew that Toby's legacy would live on, not only through our story, but also through the countless lives he had touched. His memory would continue to inspire hope, connection, and the enduring power of love. In the days and weeks that followed Toby's passing, I found solace in writing. I poured my grief and my gratitude into a new book, a tribute to Toby and the profound impact he had had on my life. The book, titled Toby's Gift, was a celebration of his life, his love, and his enduring legacy. It was a heartfelt tribute to the dog who had taught me the true meaning of home. Toby's Gift resonated with readers around the world, just as home had. It offered comfort to those who had lost a beloved pet, and it reminded everyone of the extraordinary capacity for love and loyalty that exists within the animal kingdom. And so, Toby's story continued to touch hearts and inspire hope. Long after he was gone, his legacy lived on, not only in the books I wrote, but also in the memories of all those who had been touched by his gentle spirit and his unwavering love. And in my heart, he would forever remain my faithful companion, the dog who had shown me the true meaning of home. The years following Toby's passing were a time of both profound grief and quiet reflection. The silence in my home was a constant reminder of his absence, the empty space beside my bed, a testament to his unwavering loyalty. But amidst the sorrow, there was also a deep sense of gratitude. I was grateful for the years we had shared, for the memories we had created, and for the extraordinary journey that had transformed my life. I continued to write, pouring my heart and soul into each new project. My books resonated with readers around the world, offering comfort, inspiration, and a reminder of the enduring power of love and connection. One day, I received a letter from a young woman named Sarah. She was a veterinarian who had read both Home and Toby's Gift, and she was deeply moved by Toby's story and its impact on my life. "Dear Your Name," she wrote, "your books have touched my heart in a way I never expected. As a veterinarian, I witness the incredible bond between humans and animals every day, but your story is truly special. It has inspired me to dedicate my life to helping animals and their owners, to strengthening that bond, and to honoring the memory of those we have lost." Sarah's letter filled me with a sense of purpose and renewed energy. I realized that Toby's legacy extended beyond the pages of my books. It was inspiring others to make a difference in the world, to create a positive impact on the lives of animals and humans alike. I decided to start a foundation in Toby's name, dedicated to supporting animal shelters, rescue organizations, and initiatives that promoted the human-animal bond. The foundation quickly gained momentum, attracting donations from readers and animal lovers around the world. We funded programs that provided medical care to abandoned animals, supported the training of service dogs for people with disabilities, and organized events that brought together humans and their furry companions. The Toby Foundation became a living tribute to my beloved dog, a testament to the enduring power of his love and loyalty. It was a way to ensure that his legacy would continue to make a positive impact on the world long after he was gone. One of the Foundation's most successful initiatives was a program that paired therapy dogs with patients in hospitals and nursing homes. The gentle presence and unconditional affection of these dogs brought comfort and joy to those who were sick, lonely, or in need of emotional support. I often visited these facilities with the therapy dogs, witnessing firsthand the transformative power of their presence. I saw patients who had been withdrawn and unresponsive light up with smiles and laughter as they petted the soft fur of a therapy dog. I saw elderly residents find solace and companionship in the gentle gaze of a canine friend. These experiences reinforce my belief in the extraordinary capacity of animals to heal and connect with humans on a deep emotional level. Toby had taught me that lesson firsthand, and now, through the Foundation, we were sharing that gift with others. As the years passed, the Foundation continued to grow and thrive. We expanded our programs, reached more communities, and touched the lives of countless animals and humans. And though Toby was no longer by my side, his spirit was always present, guiding our work and inspiring our mission. I often felt his presence in the wagging tails of the dogs we helped, in the grateful smiles of the people we served, and in the countless stories of love and loyalty that we encountered. One evening, as I was attending a Foundation event at a local animal shelter, I met a young woman named Lily. She was a volunteer at the shelter, and she had read all of my books. "Your books have changed my life," she said, her eyes shining with admiration. "They've inspired me to pursue a career in animal welfare, to dedicate my life to helping animals in need." Lily's words filled me with a profound sense of gratitude and fulfillment. I realized that Toby's legacy was not only about the work of the Foundation, but also about the individual lives that he had touched, the people he had inspired to make a difference in the world. As I looked at Lily, I saw a reflection of myself, a young person filled with passion and a desire to make a positive impact. And I knew that Toby would be proud, knowing that his story had inspired such dedication and compassion. The years continued to pass, and though the pain of Toby's absence never fully faded, it was softened by the knowledge that his legacy lived on. The Foundation continued to thrive. The therapy dogs brought comfort and joy, and young people like Lily carried on the torch of compassion and advocacy. And in my heart, Toby remained my faithful companion, the dog who had taught me the true meaning of home, the dog whose love and loyalty had transformed my life and inspired a legacy of hope and healing. The quiet of the house after Toby was gone was a heavy blanket, suffocating at times. Every corner held a ghost of his presence. The indentation on the sofa where he used to curl, the faint click of his nails on the hardwood floor, the sunbeams he used to nap in, now empty. The writing became my solace, a way to keep his memory alive, to channel the grief into something meaningful. Toby's gift poured out of me, a torrent of memories and emotions, a love letter to the dog who had changed my life in ways I was still discovering. The book resonated deeply with readers, many of whom had experienced the profound loss of a beloved pet. I received countless letters and emails filled with stories of companionship, comfort, and the unique bond that forms between humans and animals. It was a reminder that Toby's story was not just my own, but a universal one. One of the letters came from a children's book editor named Maya. She had read Toby's gift and was struck by the gentle wisdom and unconditional love that Toby had embodied. "Dear Your Name," she wrote, "your portrayal of Toby's life and your bond with him is truly beautiful. I believe his story would resonate deeply with children, offering them comfort and understanding about the loss of a pet. Have you ever considered writing a children's book about Toby?" The idea intrigued me. I had never written for children before, but the thought of sharing Toby's gentle spirit with a younger audience was appealing. It felt like another way to extend his legacy, to introduce a new generation to the profound joy and unconditional, or love that a dog can bring. I contacted Maya, and we began to collaborate on a children's book about Toby. We focused on his kindness, his playful nature, and the unwavering loyalty he showed throughout his life. The illustrations were soft and heartwarming, capturing Toby's gentle essence. The book, titled The Best Boy, told the story of a golden retriever named Toby who brought joy and comfort to everyone he met. It gently addressed the topic of loss, emphasizing the enduring power of love and the importance of cherishing memories. The Best Boy was a success, finding its way into the hands of children and families around the world. It became a comforting resource for those grieving the loss of a pet, a celebration of the love that remains even after they are gone. Through the children's book, Toby's story reached a new generation, spreading his message of kindness and unconditional love to young hearts. It was a reminder that the impact of a life well lived can ripple outwards, touching countless others. As I continued to write and work with the Toby Foundation, I found myself drawn to the local animal shelter. I started volunteering a few days, a week, spending time with the dogs, offering them comfort and companionship. It was a way to honor Toby's memory, to give back some of the unconditional love that I had received from him. Being at the shelter, surrounded by dogs in need of homes, filled a small part of the emptiness I had felt since Toby's passing. One rainy afternoon, as I was walking through the kennels, a small scruffy terrier mix caught my eye. He was huddled in the corner of his enclosure, his eyes wide and filled with a timid uncertainty. There was something about him that reminded me of Toby's gentle spirit, a vulnerability that tugged at my heart. I spent some time with him, speaking softly and offering him treats. Slowly, he began to relax, his tail giving a tentative wag. His name was Gus, and he had been found wandering alone, just like Toby had been all those years ago. As I spent more time with him, I learned that he was a sweet and affectionate dog who had clearly been through a lot. Over the next few weeks, a bond began to form between Gus and me. His quiet resilience and his capacity for trust reminded me so much of Toby's gentle nature. I found myself looking forward to my visits to the shelter, eager to spend time with him. One evening, as I was getting ready to leave, Gus pressed his head against the bars of his kennel, his eyes pleading. In that moment, I knew that I couldn't leave him there. I filled out the adoption papers, my heart filled with a familiar mix of excitement and nervousness. Bringing another dog into my life felt like a big step, but the connection I felt with Gus was undeniable. The ride home was quiet. Gus nestled nervously in the passenger seat. But as we settled into the house, he began to explore, his tail giving tentative wags as he sniffed every corner. It took time for Gus to fully adjust, to learn to trust and feel safe. But with patience and gentle encouragement, he slowly began to blossom. His timid uncertainty gave way to playful curiosity, and his quiet affection deepened into unwavering loyalty. Gus was different from Toby in many ways. He was smaller, more energetic, and had a mischievous streak that Toby never possessed. But he filled the empty spaces in my home with his own unique brand of love and companionship. He slept at the foot of my bed, just as Toby had. He followed me from room to room, his presence a comforting weight at my feet as I wrote. He greeted me with enthusiastic tail wags and happy barks whenever I returned home. Gus didn't replace Toby. No dog ever could. But he brought a new kind of joy and love into my life. A reminder that even after loss, there is always room for connection and companionship. Through Gus, I learned that love can take many forms, and that opening our hearts to a new relationship doesn't diminish the love we hold for those we have lost. Instead, it expands our capacity to love, enriching our lives in unexpected ways. And so, the legacy of Toby continued, not only through my writing and the foundation, but also through the new love and companionship that Gus brought into my life. Toby's gift had been the ability to open my heart, to teach me the profound power of the human-animal bond, and to show me that even in the face of loss, love endures. Life settled into a new rhythm after Gus came into my life. His playful energy and quirky personality filled the house with a different kind of joy, one that was uniquely his. He chased sunbeams with a ferocity Toby never possessed, and his happy barks echoed through rooms that had been silent for too long. He was a constant reminder that even after loss, life continues, and new connections can bring unexpected happiness. He didn't erase the memories of Toby, but he added new layers of love and laughter to my days. The Toby Foundation continued its work, growing in reach and impact. The therapy dog program expanded to more hospitals and care facilities, bringing comfort and connection to those in need. We also launched a new initiative focused on supporting senior dogs in shelters, providing them with the specialized care and loving homes they deserved. Through the foundation, Toby's legacy of kindness and compassion lived on, touching countless lives and making the world a little brighter. My writing also evolved. While Toby's story remained a part of me, my new projects explored broader themes of resilience, connection, and the healing power of nature. Gus often served as my furry muse, his antics and his unwavering presence finding their way into my narratives. One of my new books, The Whispering Woods, told the story of a woman who finds solace and healing in the companionship of a rescue dog while navigating a difficult time in her life. Gus's playful spirit and unwavering loyalty were clearly evident in the character of the dog in the story. The Whispering Woods became another bestseller, resonating with readers who found comfort and hope in its message of resilience and the healing power of the natural world and the animal bond. Life felt full again, not in the same way it had with Toby, but in a new and evolving way. Gus brought a different kind of energy and companionship, and my work with the foundation and my writing continued to provide a sense of purpose and connection to Toby's enduring legacy. One crisp autumn afternoon, as Gus and I were walking in the park, I received a message from Maya, my editor for The Best Boy. "I have some exciting news," she wrote. "The book has been nominated for a prestigious Children's Literature Award." I was thrilled by the news. The Best Boy had been a labor of love, a gentle tribute to Toby aimed at helping children understand and cope with the loss of a pet. The nomination felt like a validation of that intention, a recognition of the book's ability to touch young hearts. The award ceremony was held a few weeks later. It was a heartwarming event, filled with authors, illustrators, and educators who shared a passion for children's literature. When The Best Boy was announced as the winner, I felt a wave of emotion wash over me. It was a moment of profound gratitude, a recognition of Toby's enduring impact, even in the realm of children's storytelling. As I accepted the award, I spoke about Toby, about his gentle spirit and the unconditional love he had given me. I shared. My hope that the best boy would offer comfort and understanding to children who were navigating the difficult experience of losing a pet. The award brought the best boy to an even wider audience, reaching more children and families with its message of love and remembrance. It felt like another way that Toby's legacy was continuing to grow and touch lives. Life continued its gentle flow. Gus remained my steadfast companion, his playful antics and loving presence a constant source of joy. The Toby Foundation thrived, expanding its programs and reaching more animals and people in need. My writing continued to evolve, exploring new themes while always carrying the underlying message of connection and resilience that Toby had taught me. One spring morning, I received an email from Carol Miller, Frank Miller's daughter. "I was thinking about you and Toby," she wrote, "and I came across something of my dad's that I thought you might like to have." She explained that she had found an old photograph album belonging to her father. In it, there were several pictures of him and Captain Riley during the war, and in a few of them, there was a small, dark-coloured dog that looked remarkably like the descriptions I had read of Lucky. She offered to send me copies of the photographs. I was deeply touched by her thoughtfulness. Receiving those images, seeing Captain Riley with Lucky, would be another piece of the puzzle, a more tangible connection to Toby's lineage. A few days later, the photographs arrived. Seeing the grainy images of Captain Riley with Lucky, his loyal companion by his side in the midst of a world at war, was a powerful and moving experience. It brought the stories I had read to life, adding a visual dimension to the bond between the pilot and his dog. I carefully added the copies of the photographs to the collection of mementos I kept, a tribute to Toby and his history. They served as a poignant reminder of the enduring power of love and loyalty that transcends generations. Life continued to unfold, marked by the quiet joys of companionship, the fulfillment of meaningful work, and the comforting presence of memories. Gus, with his own unique charm, continued to fill my days with laughter and affection. And in the quiet moments, I would often think of Toby, his gentle spirit forever etched in my heart. His legacy lived on through the foundation, through my writing, and through the love that Gus brought into my life. The journey that had begun with a dusty cardboard box in the garage had led me down unexpected paths, uncovering a rich history and deepening my understanding of the profound bond between humans and animals. And though Toby was no longer physically present, his spirit continued to guide me, his love a constant presence in my life.